Hello, I'm Janae Passer, and this is my comprehensive exam. My project is entitled Role Players at Play, a study of English language learners and the world of Warcraft. I became interested in digital game playing and language learning when I taught in Germany, and I taught a couple year 6 boys that had really good English. And I thought that maybe one of their parents was a native English speaker, but they weren't. These two boys were from homes that didn't have English as a first language spoken. They learned how to play English from playing Call of Duty, a really violent game, but they had really good English, and that got me interested in learning more about second language acquisition and playing video games. And so a recent census found that teens from ages 13 to 18 spend 8 hours and 39 minutes daily engaged in screen entertainment. And screen entertainment can include video games, using social media, browsing websites, creating content, e-reading, and other digital activities. So it's not just video games, but teens spend a lot of time on their phones or computers or watching TV. So that's over 8 hours a day. The average American high school day is only 6 hours and 34 minutes long. And then even for ELLs, their ESL class time is even shorter than that. They maybe get an hour, if that, to learn English. So my study will be limited to one digital game, and that's World of Warcraft. And I hope that the findings of the study will inform pedagogical practices that will aid students and teachers in using digital spaces as language learning environments. For my literature review, I learned about learning beyond the classroom, and that encompasses all learning that happens outside the classroom, including out of class, after class, extracurricular activities, self-access out of school, distance learning, informal, non-formal, naturalistic learning, non-instructed learning, and self-instruction, autonomous, independent, self-directed, and self-regulated learning. And Phil Benson is the creator of this. And so we have like the little Duolingo guy. So a lot of people do Duolingo. They have this little guy here. Sorry, I want to talk about this. This is a game called Ace Attorney, and it's a game where the players are attorneys and do things with law-related things. And in one of the journal articles I read for my literature review, a student sought out this game, Ace Attorney, and you can play it on the Nintendo DS. He sought it out to help him learn English law terms and vocabulary for a law class he was going to. So I thought that that was interesting. So that's out of class learning. It's informal. Duolingo's informal. And then Infinity Spaces, that shaped a lot of what I do. Infinity Spaces is a place or set of places where people affiliate with others based primarily on shared activities, interests, and goals, not shared race, class, culture, ethnicity, or gender. So in Infinity Spaces, people come together to solve problems. They can be religious, political, anything. And a lot of times it's for fun. Infinity Spaces is where people go outside the problem. So for something like World of Warcraft, it's the chat rooms, it's the wikis, YouTube videos, different things where people go and share their ideas and their knowledge about a subject. And people are so into the thing like World of Warcraft that they go seek out other experiences and seek to connect with people. And Infinity Spaces are really important for online digital learning. The theoretical background I use for my study is based around social constructivism. And I believe that language learning, if you're going to be successful, is social. People learn better when they're using the language, when they're interacting in the language. And so situated learning theory is one theory I use. And that states that every idea in human action is a generalization adapted to ongoing environment, is found on the belief that what people learn, see, and do is situated in their role as a member of a community. And that links back in with the affinity space because they're a member of a community of the infinity space. And then Vygotsky's theory of social constructivism, all cognitive functions start with social interactions. Knowledge is a product of social interactions with a community. Learning is a process that happens when learners are included in a knowledge community. And then when they're involved in that knowledge community at infinity space, the zone of proximal development really comes in because learners, everybody interacts with everybody else. It's really important with affinity spaces if an ELL seeks out infinity space because they can be helped by more competent players that can help scaffold or give them assistance so that they can play the game better. Maybe they don't understand how to play the game, or maybe they don't understand the language that's used, so that they can work with somebody else, seek out somebody who speaks their L1 language that's a little bit more competent or a lot more competent in the L2 language that they're playing the game in, and so they can help them out. And so this helps with them not becoming too frustrated or quitting the game. So it's really helpful. For my literature review, I also found a lot of journal articles that were about group dynamics because group dynamics are really important when you're learning language socially. And a study by Fosberg in 2016 studied how group dynamics influence the motivation and confidence in the learner's target language use. This study was interesting because it found that if people, the game players, if they didn't become friends or get attached or become part of the group, their language learning really suffered, and they didn't do as well as the players that felt connected and part of a group and felt included in that group. The people that really made connections in the group, their language acquisition was a lot better than the kids that didn't, or the players that didn't become part of the group. And the infinity spaces created by massively multiplayered online role-playing games, that's what you call World of Warcraft kind of games. They offer multilingual learners opportunity for authentic communication with other players in the game or the group, and students can practice their language skills anonymously, thus reducing their affective filters. So that helps them when they're doing the language learning anonymously. Some people might be reluctant to speak in class, but this gives them a place to go, and the group helps them. And so learning language through digital environments, social media, or the online games, or any of that, it's not just a magical thing that happens. There are some challenges. Some of the language used on the platforms is inappropriate for younger learners, just bad language. And then also in some of the feedback from game players in the journal article said that they didn't feel like digital games were a good place to learn language because of poor grammar usage on these games in chat rooms or people just talking or slang. Some players also reported that the level and complexity of the English was just too high for them to utilize the game to learn the L2 language. So that's a problem. And then not having knowledge of how the game is played can affect the students or the game player's language acquisition. If it's too hard, just the gameplay itself, they might quit playing, and it's just too much to overcome the language and how to play the game. And in one of the articles I read, it was interesting, it was talking about Facebook and how there were Japanese students that needed to be taught the cultural norms of being on that platform so they could utilize it. The students didn't know how Facebook was used or how native speaking English people, how they use the platform. And so it was hard for them to engage and make friendships on there. For my research, I'm using applied research, and so the language learning activities are being tested to determine if they're beneficial for second language learners, and I'm using it in my own classroom. The study will take place in a 10th grade ESL study hall. The participants are 5 students, 3 male, 2 female. And the study participants have an English proficiency level of either a level 3 developing or a level 4 expanding from the WIDA access test. And they need to have this level so that their English skills are good enough that they can read and understand and express themselves in English. But I didn't want it too high that they might not get big jumps in English language acquisition. So for the qualitative data I'll be collecting student journals and also graphic organizers that the students will create during the next 6 weeks of the study. The quantitative data I will collect is a 100-question new academic word list test, and that collects information on their vocabulary size at the time of the beginning of the test. And I'm using that to filter out words that they already know to see if I can figure out what words that they did learn or if there was vocabulary that they gained through playing. And I'm going to use data-driven coding and scoring of the students' journals with a rubric and a review of their personal dictionaries. I'm going to count up the words that they learn and they write on their dictionaries. And I'm also going to use time logs that the students will record how many hours or the time that they use playing World of Warcraft or another activity in class. For the first 3 weeks of the study, the students will learn how to play World of Warcraft because that was an issue in some other studies that students didn't understand how to play World of Warcraft, so they weren't very successful in learning language through World of Warcraft. And then they'll also go to a podcast station and a reading station, and they'll be given a personal dictionary to use, and then also they're going to take the pre-test of the vocabulary words. And they're going to learn how to do this independently. After the initial 3 weeks where the students have to do the activities prescribed, the last 3 weeks they get to choose what they do. And this is a screenshot of the activities they can choose from. So I want to see if they actually choose to play World of Warcraft. They can do the podcast station and the reading station. They do have some alternative activities. They can work on homework, they can play a game, or they can make another project. No matter what they choose, they're going to do the personal dictionary and do their journal writing. At the end of the 6 weeks, I'll collect the students' journals and their portfolios that they made with the graphic organizers and their personal dictionaries. And I'm going to analyze the journals and also score them using the rubric. I'm going to see if there's any themes that emerge or words that come up, common themes in the students' journals, and I'm going to code it that way after I see what happens. And then the journal entries will be scored using a rubric to determine if there's a relationship between the chosen language activity and the time spent on the activities. And then also at the end of the 6 weeks, the students will again take the 100-question vocabulary test to see if there were gains in their vocabulary size. So the study wants to explore how MMORPGs could potentially motivate students to increase their L2 vocabulary size outside the classroom. And students that are more motivated and happy with what they're doing, they learn more language and they persist longer and they do more with it. And this is important because ELL student time in school is so limited that it'd be really good to be able to utilize their out-of-school free time activities to help them learn language better and faster. After this research is done, I am interested in continuing to learn more about social media and different language platforms and games to aid students in their L2 language acquisition. There's very limited research on how teachers have been able to successfully make a bridge between students' classroom academic learning, the English they need to learn to be successful in the classroom, and how they bridge that with social media, game playing, watching YouTube videos outside the classroom. I want to learn more about that. And more research needs to be done to see when using these platforms if students are learning academic English or English that helps them academically, or if they're just learning social English. Both are beneficial, but I think to get funding and support, it needs to be shown that there's actually academic language acquisition going on.